Hey, it's Patrick here again, and today on Philosophy Sundays, what I'd like to talk to you guys about is something that I mentioned before in one of my, I believe it was my first video, that philosophy or studying philosophy puts a lot more importance on the question rather than the answer. So today, what I'd like to ask you guys, or I guess together we will bring up these questions, are certain questions that I always found myself asking throughout my life that I guess don't necessarily have an answer. Uh, Really important question that I've really been asking recently, maybe ever since 2015 until nowadays, is a question that was revealed to me when I read Being in Time by Martin Heidegger. And that question is, what is being? Or in the book, it even simplifies it even more by saying, or by asking, what is? It's a very general term, and in the first couple sections of Being in Time that Martin Heidegger wrote, he just repeats the process of asking oneself, what is being? And continuously doing this. And he says this must be done throughout a lifetime. It even goes to the question, what is time? In my philosophy class, my prof presented the idea that time is just the present, and each time the present becomes the past, it disappears into nothingness. And in the present, while this is happening, we can only anticipate the future. But the future is never there until it's in the present. And the moment it hits the present, it becomes the past, and then disappears into nothingness. So you get a bunch of present moments all within a timeline. I believe this was an idea from St. Augustine, but I could be mistaken. Another question that I found myself asking a lot, especially when I was younger, maybe around first year university until I graduated, so from 2012 until 2016. But it's important to mention that this question has roots that go all the way back until 2008, 2009, when I was still in high school, when I first met my crew, Remedial Crowd, who's like my brothers at this point, second family, not by blood, of course. But anyway, this question was, or is, how do I prove that the other exists and is like me? Or is he or she even like me? So I guess what I'm trying to say here is I've had to deal with solipsism, which is the idea that by studying one's own existence and one's own reality and really focusing on the subjectivity of yourself, or what I did was the subjectivity of myself as a subject experiencing the world. Again, this is all linked to existentialism and how that is the root of my philosophy. I was introduced, the very first things I was introduced to that was philosophical text was all existentialism, which is looking at the world through your subjectivity. How do I perceive and experience my own reality? With this, I guess, philosophical movement, one of the first philosophical paradoxes and problems that I ran into, and I believe is what this philosophical movement kind of moves individuals towards, is that problem of solipsism. So to better understand solipsism, we need to go back understand the beginning of existentialism, which kind of goes back all the way until Descartes. So he's the French guy that came up with the I think, therefore I am, which greatly impacted the Western world. This is why it's the whole idea that Descartes came to a position called methodical doubt, where he wanted to be certain of what he was experiencing and certain of all the truth that was being presented to him. So what he did was he would doubt anything that could not be certain, that was not certain. This led him to doubt his senses. His rationale for this was because our senses as human beings can be fooled. I can take like this cup of water and, let's say, put something in, like my finger or a stick in it, and through my vision it kind of looks bent. I don't know if you can see it, if you can see it on the video, but it's a little physics optical illusion, but it looks like your finger is bent, thus saying that your illusion or your vision can make you perceive an illusion, which is your vision being tricked. Or hearing couldn't be trusted for Descartes because sometimes you'll hear something but that wasn't actually there, or you'll think something else was that sound. An example for this would be wind blowing into a certain object, but you not understanding or knowing what this actual object is, and you thinking it's someone calling your name, or if someone yells in the street and calls your name. That's not a good example. How can our hearing be illusioned? I guess illusion wouldn't be the word for hearing. It would have to be how could our hearing be misinformed or misled? Vision could easily be misled, according to Descartes, an experiment that he uses an example, from what I remember, as a stick being bent into the water. But now that I think about it, I can't really think of an example of hearing being misled. Anyway, we'll move on from that. Touch can be misled, apparently. Apparently, yeah. What is Descartes even talking about? How can touch be misled? I'm pretty sure anything I touch, I know that it's there. Oh, that's what I'm forgetting. For Descartes, because he takes this position of methodical doubt, he doesn't know if he's dreaming or actually living in the world. That's what it is. Just because sometimes he can be in a dream that feels like all his senses are there. It feels like he's actually living life, but in fact he was just having a really vivid dream. And I guess for Descartes, he couldn't separate the dream world from reality. Descartes was crazy. Anyway, he came up with the idea of the I think, therefore I am because of this. It was the one thing he could not doubt. So essentially, I think, therefore I am, or the cogito ergo sum of Descartes, is that the only thing he can't doubt, for him to be able to doubt things, he has to be a thinking mind. He has to be thinking. So for him to think would mean that he's existing because he can doubt things. So the only thing that for Descartes in his methodical doubt he could be certain of was that he thinks, therefore he exists. But this is why in the Western world nowadays our existence is kind of linked to our thoughts. So our mind is constantly running, and it can sometimes lead to the issue of not being able to sleep, which is kind of a common thing in the Western world, apparently, that people aren't able to just turn their minds off and say,